Hello, beautiful soul. So, in this video, I want to talk to you about Medusa and fear, anger, and rage. And what is this like during the awakening process? Why we have to face all of these fears, all of this anger that comes out of nowhere, that sometimes leaves us confused. We are often told during the spiritual awakening, that it's all about love, light, gentleness, presentness. But what a lot of people don't mention is that before we get to that point in our spiritual awakening, we really have to face a lot of truths, a lot of things that we never saw coming before we reach the point of presentness, of lightness, of pure love and bliss, as well as understanding the groundedness. We have to face and we have to do a lot of sacred work by confronting our fears, our rage, our anger, our shame, and so on. So, for many of us, this really represents a point in time where we are working with a lot of repressed emotions, not only from this life, but also from before incarnation, and also past lives and other soul timelines, as well as generational trauma and ancestral wounds, right? So there is a lot that we have to become aware of. And sometimes it's overwhelming. It feels like we're never going to be done. But trust me, it gets better. With time, there is a sense of understanding the deep courage that it takes to walk through this process and to continue to push through, to face what you have faced and still be standing. That takes a lot of courage, a lot of wisdom, a lot of compassion and empathy, sometimes even when we don't think we have any for ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here right now, right? So this is when, during that process where we are really facing the fears of the body, the fears of dying, of death, the fears that comes out of nowhere. Oh my God, it's so overwhelming sometimes. And there is also, and this is not linear by any means, because sometimes the anger can come before the fears. So there comes this sensation of anger, this rage that comes out of nowhere, and you're like, where is this coming from? And it's because it has been repressed. We had to be a good little girl or a good little boy to be okay in our families, in our community, in our society, right? So we have to put a lot of those emotions to the side because it's too much to hold them. Because if I hold those emotions, that is going to make me a bad little girl or a bad little guy, a bad little boy. So in the process of awakening, when we start working very deeply with the body, we are going to start realizing that there are a lot of unconscious fears that are coming to the consciousness. We becoming aware of that fear, the fear of getting sick, of being broken, of having surgeries, of dying. That's the ultimate fear, right? Disappearing, being nothing. Some of us work with that a lot before we get to the rage. This is not a linear process again. So there is no way to, sometimes you're working with both at the same time. So in mythology, when we think of the energy of Medusa as a monster, right? She's always portrayed as a monster. There is really a cautionary tale here. The head on a shield, right? But the spiritual awakening, we are really looking at Medusa. I want to bring this perspective to look at Medusa from a much more lived reality of spiritual awakening, where she's something else completely entirely, where the monster, the head, that is on the shield, the monster, because she was a priestess before she became the monster, right? In the spiritual awakening, normally we are going to start connecting with her in dreams, visions, altered state of consciousness, or even channeling. And she's going to come through as a priestess, maybe even a muertera, a walker. So she is raw, untamed embodiment of sacred rage, right? She is really an exile feminine wisdom part of us, where she's coming to help you reclaim your divine feminine, which includes the dark feminine, right? So she's holding your dark feminine archetype within, your dark feminine energy, your dark feminine power, your wisdom that has it doesn't need to ask for permission. It just is, right? So she appears exactly when we are potentially ready, or we're getting ready to reclaim parts of ourselves that we're taught to fear. We were taught to fear these parts of ourselves, right? She may be holding the ancestral anger, the rage of what happened through the bloodline, the rage of the traumas of the child or the teenager within you, the teenager and the child of your parents and grandparents, and back to the ancestral line, right? So she's holding the generational betrayal that is still echoing within your bones, that is very real. So if you start getting dreams, messages, visions, being pulled to her energy to research who she is, Medusa is coming really because she's letting you know there is time to face some truths that maybe you had no idea were coming, or that they were too painful to hold before. But now, for whatever reason, she believes that you're ready. So she's coming to reclaim the wild within, the primal energy that was it was violated, right? And there were so many things that had to be repressed and demonized within us across many generations. So she's coming to help you reclaim what belongs to you. Medusa doesn't arrive on your timeline, on your physical timeline. She really is arriving at a soul level's timeline when you are ready, when the container is strong enough to for you to do this work, for you to face and know and be able to hold what has been buried within you and within your, bloodline. So for some of us, the awakening doesn't really arrive as sometimes I hear stories of people that had a very soft, gentle awakening. And I'm like, ooh, they had a lot of preparation in other lifetimes in order to have that soft, gentle awakening. But for some of us, it's a process of many, 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 many years and many months or years of very deep, dark night of the soul. So when Medusa is coming, right? And I'm not talking about the awakening of, oh my God, there's more to this reality, but a true deep awakening where you're able to be fully present, to be fully grounded, to be fully embodied in your body, to understand and have wisdom and knowledge. So the awakening that I'm referring to is not an awakening of, I know there's more to life than this reality, and I'm having some dreams, I'm battling some internal and external things. The awakening that I'm referring to is something that takes many years in the making, because really is a process of purifying your being in order for you to be and experience life from an integrity of wholeness, a groundedness, where you can be spiritual and in the physical at the same time and still be grounded in your truth, in your reality, in seeing beyond the delusions and so on. So the awakening that I'm referring to really takes a lot of work. For some people, it may be quicker than others because they had many years of preparation before. But for some of us, really is a journey that sometimes we don't think we're going to make it because it's so intense. And for me, it's been very intense. It hasn't been a process of a month or a year. When Medusa started appearing, I was really just getting started, really. I thought that I was way more advanced, but when I look back, I'm like, wow, she really came to bring the medicine, the serpent medicine. You can see her with all the snakes, the serpents on the head. She has that sacred hist, the hist that shakes the foundation of everything you thought that you knew. So this is energy. For some of you might refer to this energy as a Kundalini energy, and I'm not saying that Medusa is the Kundalini energy, but I'm saying that she carries that medicine that needs to rise within you. So you may experience sounds of hissing, you may start making noises, you might, speak with a lot of S in your vocabulary that is more pronounced than others. And we are looking at, in this case, a Medusa through the serpent medicine that is rising within you as puncturing and hissing and biting, piercing, right? The especially the base of the spine, because she has all of these things on the head. That means that the head is full of fears, right? So the head being full of fear reflects, obviously, that's the root chakra. It's reflecting the root chakra, the fears that are held in the root chakra that needs to be released, that we need to become aware of. We need to release that fear. We need to work through that fear. We need to realize what we've been suppressing. What are the truths that we have been suppressing? Every place that, it's almost like as you start working with the root chakra and the fears, you're going to notice that a lot of them, obviously, because the root chakra is the survival, the one that is related to survival and to feeling like, do I really belong in this place? Am I safe to be here, right? Do I belong here? So every place you learn to make yourself small is going to come up during this process. What do I do to keep myself safe? Some of us hide. Some of us do completely the opposite because we think that that's what we have to do to be here to survive. So when Medusa is coming up during this process, as well, eventually or before, like I said, it's not linear. You're going to face the anger and the rage that have been repressed, that have kept you feeling small. And the rage represents that truth that I am no small. Something is wrong with this scenario here. Something is wrong that I had to hide my true self from myself and others in order to survive. So there is the rage and the anger that we feel is leading us to discover the truthness of our being, right? So when Medusa is coming in the dreams and or meditations or trances, or you just feel called to it, notice what type of anger may you be holding? What type of anger? What makes you angry? What makes you go into rage? And what is the belief behind the anger? When you feel angry and you feel the rage, what do you believe about yourself? That's where the clue is. That's the biggest clue that you can have. So the spiritual awakening and being full of these fears and rage and anger actually means that you're actually doing the spiritual awakening right. Because some people think, oh my God, I'm doing all of this work and I'm still angry. Something is wrong with me because I'm still angry. You are supposed to get angry. You're supposed to feel the fears. You're supposed to feel the rage, because that is indicating that you're actually doing deep work during your spiritual awakening process. Of course, while we're in it, right, we don't see it like that. But it's really marking that you are doing deep work in the process and that you are now have more energy available to be able to face the fears, to be able to face the rage, the shame, the anger that is coming up for you to be aware of. So this is pure raw fuel energy that is needed to break down the lies that we have accepted as truth when we are little, and family or friends put us down without realizing that they're putting us down, or they are so afraid that they're passing those fears to us. No, don't do this because we don't want to fail, right? That's the implication of some of the things that we are told. So give me 1 second. So during this process, we're really working to disrupt the system that is controlling us, the programming, whether it is internal and external, that has kept us small, bound to whatever limitations we believe, whatever delusions and illusions we believe. So it's coming to the first so that we can break through and see Maya, see beyond the Maya, right? The illusions. So Medusa, as an archetypal force, is going to come into our life to not give us comfort, but she's going to come to disrupt the ego that is holding on to certain programming to survive. And it's going to ask us to not go through and become what a lot of people do, to when we spiritually bypass and we're trying to get to the other side too fast and we bypass, she's coming back to remind us there's something pending here. So she's going to arrive to disrupt, like she's going to really rupture illusions, and she's going to demand a radical honesty from us that sometimes it hurts to be that honest with ourselves. Like I've been holding to a little tweak so I don't see and face the truth that I don't want to face and see. And now she comes and she's going to disrupt all of that. So she's going to ask us to be extremely honest with ourselves. Her gaze is going to invite us to, the infamous gaze, right? Which sometimes our parents, and I know I did it to my child too, where we're looking at the child and it's like, don't dare. That gaze that was really freezing everybody is really turning, is the ones, this is how I see it. I think it's piercing through the specific chakras that you're working with in order for you to face and to see. Is forcing you to see parts of yourself that you have disowned, that you have buried for good reasons back then, but not anymore, right? Good reasons because it helped you to survive, but it can no longer continue. It can no longer carry you further because you're going through a spiritual awakening that is asking you to be authentic. So you can no longer bring the backpack from the parts that you disown, that you buried, that you gave away. They're no longer going to serve you because this is the shadow work, right? So you're going to have to go through layers of conditioning and to face what you have fear in order for you to reclaim what was taken from you. Maybe you thought that maybe you were, this reality, this family, this community, this planet is too dangerous. This is too ugly. I don't want to see this. Whatever it is, the traumas that we had to endure. So the mythical turning to stone, I don't see it necessarily as a punishment, but I see it as a freeze response where the moment you become paralyzed by the truth of the situation, we avoid and repress and swallow, right? So when Medusa is going to come, she's going to ask us to refuse taking, she's going to ask us to refuse doing that, to continue to do that. She's going to ask us to become our own. She's going to ask us to face what we need to face so that we can stop being victims, so that we can stop believing that we have to pity ourselves. So she's asking us to come into our power, but in order to come into the power, we have to face what we refuse to face, right? We have to see the truth that have turned us away from knowing ourselves deeply. So the paralysis in this case is actually a liminal point in the transformation where you choose, are you going to go and do the shadow work that you need to do and face the fears, face what is it that brings so much rage, the injustice done to you, to your family, to whoever, right? Or, and also eventually I'm going to probably do another video on the guilt, because I do believe that some other energies are better to explain the guilt, because sometimes we do also have to see how we have been the perpetrator, right? When we have been the people that have caused a lot of pain as well. So for me, when I'm working with this energy and this energy is coming to the surface, it's representing a lot of the fears and rage that we carry through the family line, through the ancestral line, through the bloodline, to the planetary line, right? As well as the collective, as well as the country where you were born, the family that you were born, the bloodlines that you have, right? So this is an alchemical process in reality where death is really like a gate. It's a transition point in order for you to start working and doing a lot of shadow work, not to spiritually bypass, but to actually engage with the parts of yourself that had to be repressed, the parts of yourself that you don't like, that you don't want anyone to see, the secrets you don't want anyone to know. They hold a lot of information there for you to work with, because obviously they're going to have the parts of you that you rejected, the parts of you that you need to witness and to hold and to honor and to integrate properly, right? So from Medusa, when Perseus cuts the head of Medusa, and there comes like I said, when Perseus cut that head, there is a violent act, right? This is violent, but he also represents ego death, surrendering of the small, right? With all of the protective mechanism and all these things and all of these survival strategies, there is a sacrifice here in order for us to give birth to something else. So we're letting go, we're sacrificing ourselves to let go of the illusions, the lies that we have believed about ourselves and about reality, right? The betrayals that have shaped our heart and the shield that we carry. Like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to see how vulnerable I can be. So this is a process. It's not really destruction, but it's a destruction that is a transmutation in reality. And from the cutting comes, the beautiful Pegasus, and Pegasus, with the wings and all of that, is symbolizing an artistic inspiration that is transcending. It's a very beautiful way to see reality, right? To experience the divine creativity running through us that can only be born after we cut the head, after we let go of the fears, right? After we face our rage, our anger, our fears, comes that creative expression. And this is the soul's true flight, right? So it can only emerge after we have faced and integrated the shadow, right? So the anger we feel is not separate from the spiritual path, is what I'm saying. So it's really coming to say, no more. I'm not going to be small no more. I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm going to do what I came here to do. I'm going to live life on my terms, not on what society or my family expects, right? So there is a sense of, I don't need to apologize for my existence. I am. I'm here, I'm doing this. I don't need to apologize. I don't need to be small in order for somebody else to feel better, right? I also don't need to be jealous of what other people have because I know I came here for something much more than whatever my little programming is keeping me bound to and trapped, in this prison, right? So the rage is not a detour. It really is that fire within that is asking you to stop being small, to stop seeing yourself in a way that keeps you limited, to to understand things that are way much bigger than any of us, right? So it comes at the end of that rage, and a lot at the by processing the anger and the rage and the fears, we're going to get clarity. It may not be comforting because we are going to have to face things that we normally don't want to face, but we're going to get clarity. The confusion is going to go away. We're going to become clear. A lot of us, we during this spiritual awakening, we have so much confusion because the shadow aspects are really foggy. Besides everything else that we can be carrying, I'm not going to get into that, but I hope that at the end of this, what I wanted to bring you is that during the spiritual awakening, the fears, the anger, the rage, doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. It actually implies completely the opposite. It means we are at a pivotal point where we are ready to face what we have been afraid to face. It is a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful journey, but it's a hard one. So I'm going to leave it here for now. And thank you so much. I'll see you all on the next one. Thank you.